everyone, welcome to our live stream, Redefining the Cybersecurity Landscape, the pivotal role of artificial intelligence in ensuring financial security and prosperity. I'm Aadil Bandukwala, your host, and I'm thrilled to have you all here today. Thank you for taking the time to join us for this exciting and super informative live stream. Today, we delve into the evolving landscape of cybersecurity with a special emphasis on the transformative role of artificial intelligence. Our intent today is to explore the challenges and potentials of integrating AI into cybersecurity and how it is revolutionizing financial decision making for consumers and small businesses. It is my immense pleasure to introduce our distinguished speakers for today. First up, we have Atticus Tysen, Chief Information Security Officer at Intuit. Atticus is a trailblazer in the world of information security and technology. His journey from a software engineer working on collaboration and digital signature projects to becoming the Vice President of Engineering at Avio and then transitioning to Intuit, where he has served in various leadership roles, is nothing short of inspiring. At Intuit, Atticus has been a vanguard of innovation, leading product development efforts for companies' small business group and building a robust process to protect the company's intellectual property. His current role as Chief Information Security Officer sees him at the helm of information security, fraud prevention, and enterprise information technology, ensuring safeguarding of information and enhancing technological advancement at Intuit. Atticus, thank you for joining us today. Delighted to have you with us.
You're very welcome. Delighted to be here.
Super excited to also tell our viewers, Atticus, that you're in India from the United States. How is Namma Bangalore treating you? The traffic yesterday was crazy. I hope it was not as bad this morning. And are you digging into some good South Indian breakfast even?
Oh, of course. I had a really great masala dosa actually yesterday morning, and you're right. The traffic yesterday was epic. I've been here many times. I've never seen the traffic as bad as it was yesterday afternoon. It was crazy.
Isolated incident yesterday indeed was nuts. But welcome, Atticus. Delighted to have you with us.
Thank you. I always love being in Bangalore.
Our next guest is Harishankaran K, fondly known as Hari. As the co-founder and CTO of Hackarack, Hari is revolutionizing the tech hiring landscape. Hackarack stands as a beacon in addressing developer skills for over 2,500 plus companies around the world, a testament to Hari's vision and expertise. His previous roles at global technology giants IBM and Novell have equipped him with a unique perspective on technology and hiring, making him a sought-after expert in this field. Under his leadership, Hackarack is not just assessing skills, but also shaping the future of tech hiring, ensuring companies worldwide have access to the creme de la creme of tech talent. Welcome to Hackarack TV, Hari. Like always, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Aadil. Super excited about the conversation ahead. I have a bunch of interesting questions for Atticus.
All right, for those of you who have just joined us, we're broadcasting live on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. If you have any questions or thoughts to share, feel free to comment on the platform you're tuning in from. Your comments will be sent directly to me in our live stream studio, and I have the ability to flash them on screen, just like this. So I see that a lot of comments are already coming in. Let's flash a few and welcome these. So Ashish, thank you for joining in. Hello. I see Akshat joining. Seems exciting. Very exciting indeed, right? You got the opportunity to welcome Atticus right from the US. So Akshat, thanks for joining us. We've got Srivat Solav. I'm not sure which country you're tuning in from. So type in the name of the city and the country you're tuning in from. We should let Atticus know from what different parts of the world all of us are tuning in from. So go ahead and do that. And I'd encourage the rest of our viewers to do that as well. So we get a flavor of where all people are tuned in from today. So there you go. Jayawant, good to see you. Gadar, good to see you. Kavita, thanks for joining in. Piyush, thanks for joining in. You got Kes, who's saying there is an echo. If you think there's an echo, let me get rid of my headset. If you still feel there's an echo, let me know. If the echo is better, just let me know. We'll take it from there. So if the echo is not there now, I'm assuming this is better. But Fadia, thanks for coming in. Good to see you. I'm seeing Aishwarya. Thanks for coming in. I hope the audio quality is way better now. And with that, I think we should kind of get started. So, Atticus, my first question to you, as the Chief Information Security Officer at Intuit, how have you seen the cybersecurity landscape evolve over the past few years? And where does AI fit into this whole evolution? We would love to understand.
Yeah, Adil, forever, the whole space around cybersecurity has always been an exciting, challenging, ever-evolving space. But in the last few years, there have been a whole bunch of changes around, the regulatory landscape, certainly in the US, but also globally. Technology advancements that both we've had on the defensive side. There have been so many great startups creating great technologies that we can all employ, and so much creativity going into this space. But the bad actors also have been investing and creating all kinds of new technologies, and it's an never-ending back and forth about how to protect. And then the other is just the increase and sophistication in the kinds of attacks that are happening. As many of you know, and many of your companies experience, we are under daily onslaught of social engineering. And we're really only just one employee away accidentally falling for something if we don't have the right technologies around them to really put your enterprise at risk, or even your personal information. It's important that we all remain ever vigilant, both in our personal lives and in our work lives, to make sure that we don't fall prey to these amazing schemes. And then the last thing I'll mention is obviously the prevalence now of AI. We've had AI for a long time, but with generative AI, I think the level of sophistication that's going to be coming at us is higher, and that level of sophistication is going to be available to a broader range of people to use. You may know that if you go on the dark web, you can actually rent time with LLMs, large language models, that are specifically trained to do bad things. And they're not, they're not beholden to any of the training that responsible AI companies are doing, and so that's out there and that's happening. And so, as companies, we have to continue to invest in fighting against that.
Awesome. That's a great answer, Atticus. Thank you for sharing. But I just want to kind of draw your attention. Lots of comments, crazy excitement for this particular live stream. I'm going to try and feature a few comments, right? And I'm going to kind of show you the depth of people that we have. So like we're seeing a lot of people from Bangalore. We're seeing a lot of people from Chennai. So there are lots of people from India. But let me try and showcase a few from other countries, right? So it's pretty late in Seattle. But Bernice has kind of logged in from Seattle all the way. Thank you for joining us, Bernice. We've got Wakas, who's joined us from China, from all the way from China. So again, thanks for kind of Wakas. We've got Theodore from Indonesia. Thanks, Theodore, for kind of joining in. That's Theodore for you. You've got Wakas right here from China. You've got Fadia, who's coming from Tunisia. We also have Africa in the mix. There you go. Bernard signed in from Nairobi, Kenya. We got someone tuning in from Netherlands even. So there you go. It's an eclectic mix. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. It's fantastic to see you. We've got our neighbor Nepal as well. So you've got someone from Nepal who's just kind of joined in. And then, of course, we've got Hyderabad, Andhra Pradesh, and the rest of the folks. So with that, as these comments come in, I'm going to focus on the comments. But I'd love to pass over to Hari, because I know you've got a ton of questions, Hari, that you'd like to ask.
Thanks, Aadil. And maybe leading up to the previous conversation we had, Atticus, like the data breaches are becoming more and more sophisticated, and also there are probably like AI-driven solutions to protect us against this. So how does Intuit leverage some of the AI-driven solutions to enhance your data security, given you have a vast consumer base and you would be seeing different kind of sophisticated breaches from different sources?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll also just echo Adil's comments too. It's really great to see such a global audience tuning in and such an amazing group of folks here. Really looking forward to your questions as well as we move forward. But Hari, to answer your question, you're right. There are so many different opportunities now for bad actors to potentially cause data breaches, and so many different motivations for them to do it. At Intuit, we have been on a journey for well over 5 years, kind of declaring that we were going to be an AI-driven expert platform. At the heart of any kind of AI platform, though, is going to be the data. And so we've been on a journey not only to clean up our data, but also to protect it and to put it behind a set of AI principles in how we use that data on behalf of our customers. And so it kind of starts with cleaning up your data. So one of the best ways to protect yourself from a breach is don't have data in the first place that somebody could take advantage of. And so we do things like making sure we de-identify as much data as we can. We go through ways of making sure that we can control the blast radius if somebody did get in, so that we can minimize the damage to our customers if something bad should happen. And so the first thing is just trying to think about how you organize your data, how you make sure you don't store things that you don't need to store, and be very responsible about what's around. And we do use AI for that. We have some internal tools that we've built that continually scan all of our data and are looking for PII, personally identifiable information, and flagging that. And if it's in inappropriate places, we clean it up. And not only do we clean it up where we found it, but we go back up to the source of where did that come in. And sometimes that can be in surprising places. Any of us who have offerings out there that end customers can interact with, those customers can enter information into different fields that may have PII for their customers. And so that's one of the things we do is we find where did that happen and why, and what were those users trying to do. So that's kind of the first line of defense, and using AI to find those kinds of places. The second is making sure that you're really protecting all of your assets with some of the latest tools that are out there, looking for anomalies. One of the big investments we've made is anomaly detection. Between our different services across Intuit, there's a pattern of how they talk to each other. We analyze that pattern, and if that changes, we investigate that. We actually made an acquisition of a company about 1.5 years, 2 years ago called InVision that specialized in doing that. And we've now built that into our platform so that if we detect any kind of variation in how our platform or parts of our platform are talking to each other, that flags and we investigate that. And that variation could be because the business logic changed, or it could be because we've launched a new feature, or it could be because there's a bad actor in the system, or it could be because we have fraudsters in the system doing things differently than a regular customer does. So that's another thing, is in real time, we're always using AI models. And in fact, one of the interesting stats is, we have over 500,000 different attributes about all of our small businesses that we're tracking. We have 60,000 attributes about our tax and consumer folks. So there's a lot of data there that would be valuable to end user or to bad actors to get. And so we really do try to protect that every day. And we're in fact doing over, it's over 65 billion machine learning predictions per day across our platform. A large percentage of those are around security and behavior analysis and what's happening. So we're really putting a lot of AI to work to protect our customers. Another big significant portion of those 65 billion is around helping our users be better. And we'll talk about that coming up around Intuit Assist, I know. So that's kind of the second part, is just making sure you're protecting what you have. And then the third part is around responsible AI and using things appropriately. We have a very strong governance around how we use AI in the company to be on behalf of our customers. And we think very hard and long about our AI experiences and what they should be, because the more you kind of expose through AI, the more things could be taken advantage of by bad actors trying to interact with those prompts and get information. And so we think about what's available and what kind of responses should be coming back from AI. So it's a multi-pronged approach, and it takes constant vigilance.
Wow, that's amazing. The numbers there, like having almost 500,000 attributes and 65 billion predictions per day. It's amazing to see the current state of this, and probably going back in time, or as you are integrating AI into these cybersecurity protocols, what were what were some of the challenges you had when you were going through that journey, and looking ahead, like what are some of the challenges do you foresee as well as you try to integrate more and more AI into the cybersecurity, and how can we be prepared for this, like what is Intuit doing to prepare for these challenges in like can we almost like, is it like, can we leverage AI for everything, or do we need to be careful about few things, and AI can take care of few? How do you know what's the right balance between AI and I'd call it non-AI stuff?
Yeah. You're so right. I mean, there's a long history of computer science algorithms that do a lot of amazing work. And just because AI comes along doesn't mean those algorithms are no longer useful for doing things. But I do think we can use AI for a lot of things. And it's also something you have to really be thoughtful about. And I think we're in such the early days of how we're going to be using AI, not only for cybersecurity, but frankly for everything. And so I think one of the most important things that we have to think about is AI is really only as good as the data you feed into it. How you train the models, how you think about precision and accuracy coming out of the results of those models and those predictions. And so it's really important that as any entity is trying to think about employing AI, is to realize it's not you deploy and you're done. It's a constant care and feeding of the models and the experience, and it's an ongoing living thing that you have to take care of and make sure it's performing the way you want. And so it starts with making sure you have great data, and especially in cybersecurity, it's very easy to get false positives where you can either send your ops team chasing ghosts, or if you have false positives, you could be creating friction for your good customers that you don't want to do. And so we want to be always thinking around the cybersecurity and fraud prevention experience of, what is the end customer experience? And obviously the main goal is we want zero friction for good customers and infinite friction for bad customers or bad actors. That's the goal. And then you're always trying to balance where you are in between that. And you never get it exactly to those maximums, but that's what you're really trying to do. So. And well, I guess I'll say the other thing you said is some of the challenges. I think the other thing about the challenges is there are so many different things you can think about, biometrics and behavioral patterns. You can think about looking for anomalies, and you can really run yourself ragged with all of the different opportunities that you're chasing. So the other thing you have to do is really think about risk from the beginning and think about what are the most important risks you're trying to mitigate, and point any of your mitigations, whether it's AI or anything else, in a risk-based fashion to reduce that, instead of just deploying models and AI because you can.
Got it. There's a question from in the chat as well. Like, can you also touch upon the cost aspects of using AI, like especially at Intuit scale, trying to understand like the amount of attributes you have and the predictions you make. Curious to know like what, how do you and when do you think about let's get this right, not worry about cost, and is there a stage later where you focus on cost and still get it right? Like what are the different stages, and which stage do you focus on cost and which stage you focus on getting it right first?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because not only with AI, but with any of these cybersecurity tools, they can be very expensive. And they evolve very quickly. And so whatever's the best tool today might not be the best tool a year from now. And so one of the things we always try to do is work with our vendors to make sure that we pick really great partners that are continually advancing in their space as well, so we don't have to switch partners often. But back to the main question around cost, you absolutely have to consider it. The cost of running these models, it can be exorbitant. And it's back to the risk question, is how much do you want to spend to mitigate that risk, and how much could the risk be if it weren't mitigated? And you have to balance and think about that. But one of the things that, we have a history at Intuit. For those who don't know the company, we think of ourselves as a 40-year-old startup. And we're continually innovating. We really celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit of our individual employees. And so even in the space of cybersecurity, we really encourage people to experiment. and to try new ideas. And so in the early days, we don't worry about cost too much. We just worry about effectiveness. We worry about understanding what's the outcome you're trying to go for, how are you going to measure it, and we really have some rigor around how we run experiments within cybersecurity, within tools we deploy for the workforce, within things we do externally as well for just our products. And if those metrics are succeeding and we're producing the outcomes we want, then we can start to think about how you scale it and how you bring cost in. So it's definitely a factor, but it's usually not the first one we think of.
Got it. Yeah, that's very helpful. That clarifies. Like, yeah, you think about stages at which you think on cost, and then and for sure it's initially getting it effective. My next, probably switching gears, this generative AI is certainly the most exciting thing now and has a ton of potential. How's Intuit exploring the positives of Gen AI, especially enhancing, let's say, the user experience or giving financial solutions and the overall like the end-to-end experience? Like, how is generative AI being used?
Yeah, so we think of it as it's in context of our broader mission as a company, which is powering prosperity around the world. And we do that through helping people make better financial decisions, whether you're a small business or a solo entrepreneur, or you're making individual consumer choices or trying to do your taxes, or trying to send out marketing campaigns. These are things that we try to optimize for small businesses and consumers around the world. And we think of ourselves as an AI-driven expert platform, which means there's a continuum of help we want to provide you to do that. That can go all the way from using our tools straight and direct and creating a marketing campaign or doing your finances. You can also interact with a generative AI that we've now released called Intuit Assist, and that can help you. But if you want even more help, we have human beings who are available and have context, and that's through our various live platforms. So if you're in QuickBooks and you want a bookkeeper to come on video with you and look at something, we can do that. Or if you're doing a tax release or a tax return, you can have an expert come on to video, look at your tax return, answer your question, or do it. And so we think of AI as in context of that continuum of help that we want to provide you. And it plays a role, but it's not the only thing. But what's really important is, as a customer, that whatever ways we're helping you, we have your full context in mind. We understand what you're trying to do. We understand who you are. Because of all those attributes I talked about earlier that we have about you, we want to put those attributes to work. So we know you, we treat you right, and we give you the best answers. And so that's how we think about generative AI. We think it's going to be just an amazing new set of ways to interact and help customers. And in the early days, it's a little bit like question and answer. But I think what's going to happen is we're clear as an industry and at Intuit, we're going to quickly move beyond that to actually providing you advice on how well is my business doing? Or am I saving enough? Or, I have a goal to send, my kid to college. What should I be doing differently about my finances? And if you can ask a question like that you might do with a financial advisor, and that we can give you some responses based on the context we have about you, and you can interact with a generative AI to help you develop your financial plan. And then if you need a little extra help, we can go to a human who knows about this interaction. That's really a great experience. And so that's how we're thinking about generative AI and building it into all of our products across the company. And it's really company-wide, where if you interact with our AI assistant in one product, if you interact it with another product, we're going to know about that, and we're going to know that context. And so it's not like starting over again.
Got it. That sounds exciting. And getting deep into the generative AI, I know you recently unveiled this generative AI-powered assistant called Intuit Assist. And first of all, I'd love to know the engineering side of that. Like, what challenges did you face in the planning, the development, implementation, and almost like a blueprint of how can an organization build their own assist for their use case? Like, what are the challenges they might have to face? And other part is I also want to touch upon is like, how does this envision and like how does this transform how we make financial decisions, on how it changes the consumer behavior? Maybe first we can get into the tech side of things and then into the user side,
Yeah.
Because I'm super excited to see how it got built.
Yeah, thanks for the question. And we're very proud of how we've been thinking about it. So we started off um, when Gen AI. I mean, we've been doing AI for 5 years. As Gen AI became really more prevalent, one of the things we realized is we really needed to put the power of Gen AI in the hands of all of our developers, rather than having a small few who were going to do it. But that we wanted to do that safely and responsibly. So we created something called Gen OS, which basically has three components. It has Gen Studio, which is where you can compose and experiment with and develop Gen AI-based solutions. And then there's Gen Runtime, which actually executes on the models, and we'll talk about that a little more in a minute. And then there's Gen UX, which is a set of user interface components that allows us to have that consistent experience across all of our products and a consistent way of handling the prompts and handling back and forth, and we'll talk about that as well. So there's three components. And what we did is we had all of our developers, we made them essentially go through Gen OS. We blocked access to all of the other ways to get after large language models and AI solutions, so people wouldn't go directly, because with the kind of data we have, we really couldn't have our developers just going directly to these models. We needed to make sure it was through a secure and safe way. So that's the first thing, is we really had to build something that they could use and then funnel them into using it. And then as we use it, I'll talk about Gen Runtime in a minute. What we've done is we've built a layer, a model itself that can direct queries to the best large language model to handle those queries. And so when a prompt comes in on Gen Runtime, it first hits our layer that's going to basically look at what the question or the prompt is and decide what's the best model to handle it. Because the other thing we've developed is our own large language models geared toward financial situations. And so that may be the best model to handle your question. Or if it's more generic, there may be other models that we have that we're hosting that we've gotten from OpenAI and other places. So we can direct your model to the best place. And Frank, back to the question earlier about cost, we can also use cost as a factor, because some of these models are a lot cheaper to run than others. And we, of course, always want to give the customer the best answer back, but we want the best answer at the best price. And so we can kind of think through where to run that model. So Gen OS allows us to think about these models in a more abstracted way and to say where they should run. The other thing about Gen Runtime that allows us to have a better secure experience is we tap into the prompt that's going in, whether it's the user prompt or the system prompt or any other context, and then we tap into the result that comes back. And we have a security, we essentially have a trust and safety scan of both of those. And so we're making sure that only good prompts go in, and we're making sure that only good outcomes come out. And we're logging that and learning over time to improve our models, which are assessing both of those. And then we also have a way to, if the models that are assessing the trust and safety aspects aren't sure, we can kick it to a human being to review it. So there's a lot of infrastructure that I think any company that's going to do really great AI experiences has to build. You can't just go grab OpenAI off the shelf and start building it and put it out there, because there's a lot of risks of either just bad results, because sometimes these models, as we all know, hallucinate and everything else. But there's also, if you expose your prompts to anybody, you will attract bad actors who will do prompt engineering and hack your prompts and then hack your model and get bad results coming out. So it's important that you think about putting all of these kinds of safeguards around it, and then really turbocharge the productivity of your developers by having this consistent way of doing it, and having a consistent model. So that's kind of our techie side, is we actually built this Gen OS thing. We built it very fast. We built it in about 6 months. As a company, we knew that this was going to be important for our customers, and we'll talk about why in a minute, the second half of your question. So we had to reprioritize quite a bit of people to focus on building out this capability. To answer your second question about what it's going to mean for users and how are we going to make better financial decisions, is essentially, with your permission, we will be having our models essentially looking over your shoulder and being able to help and advise you when you want to either ask a question, say, hey, my expenses over the last quarter have been creeping up. What can I do to better contain my expenses? And then you can get an answer. So you can have those kinds of dialogues with the Gen AI. But we can also prompt you, and we can say, we've noticed that your expenses are going up, and we think, maybe you should cut down on the ice cream you're buying, because maybe it's too much ice cream. And so we can kind of give you those kinds of suggestions.
That's amazing. And can you I mean, given the way you explain the OS and then up to the user experience, like is there a stage in which, like, okay, first do I have to build the OS first, completely get that done? Could you like, how did the timelines of building this look like? Can you focus on all three at the same time? As you talk about, okay, the user experience side of things, is it like a, a lot of front-end developers and designers just thinking about the experience part? Could you tell me, like, what's a blueprint of even the team which had these three things look like, and what are some of the skill sets each component need to have? Because these three looks like the right way you have stacked all of them on top of each other to ensure, like, you have the excellent, I would say, developer experience internally to build anything using Gen AI.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is, especially because we had to do it in 6 months, is we had to do everything everywhere all at once, basically, to quote a famous movie title. And we were doing this in parallel. We were learning and experimenting. In fact, even the idea of having a model that could do traffic control to the other models came in about midway through the design process, as we were thinking through and kind of needing to have that. And so we were very much experimenting. In the beginning, we knew we needed to have kind of a controlled environment, and we knew we needed to have a dev environment. We needed to have a runtime so that we could, really for security reasons, was the original reason to think of the runtime. And then we also knew we were going to have these common UX components, because the thing we want to do is make it as frictionless and easy as possible for developers to try things out and to try experiments with end customers and say, do you like this? Do you like that? And so these kinds of tools had to be really easy to use, and they had to be consistent so that everybody in the company, if you tried an experiment and you learned something, others could learn from it. So we basically had teams in parallel building out GenOS, building out the studio and the UX components, and we're iterating on those all the time. We're still iterating on those. We announced all of this and started shipping our first versions of it on September 6th, so it's still very new in the market. But if any of you are customers today, you can use Intuit Assist and check it out. But we are definitely still evolving it and still working in parallel on many fronts. But back to your question on what kind of skill set we used. We had certainly a lot of data scientists and people who understand AI and machine learning and decision making in general. We had a lot of data engineers who were thinking about how to ingest the data, how to clean the data, how to train the models, especially the ones that we did the fine-tune training on for our financial models. So we had a lot of those folks. We had a lot of folks who understood UX. Like you said, we had several of our UX designers who focused on trying to build the right experience in our products in a way that could go across the products. We had a whole bunch of folks in security, and because we've been working in AI for so long, and generative AI isn't in many ways that different. We've had folks that specialize in defensive AI. And thinking about how we use AI in a defensive posture, but then also how we think about ways we could be attacked using AI. So we have people on staff who that's their specialty. And we were able to then focus them on Gen AI in particular and the ways that we could be attacked there.
Got it. That's helpful. I do want to double down on the skills, but before that, as you build this entire internal tech stack, and because one of the things I'm fascinated is about building the developer experience, how do you ensure the developer experience for folks who are building using what is the feedback loop from the other development teams, other software engineers who are integrating this, saying, okay, is the UX the Gen UX part is the right thing you want, the OS gives you the right amount of control, and so did you have to build that cycle as well, and did you have to? How do you manage that internally as you evolve this platform?
Yeah, that's a really great question. One of the things we did at the very beginning, because we knew we'd have to move fast, and we knew we wanted to get things out in September. We set up, in the beginning, it was daily. We set up a war room where our CTO, I was there, the heads of engineering for the different business units were there, our developer experience leader was there, and our chief data officer was there. We were there every day at a certain time, and teams could come in and bring their problems. What are they blocked on? Are they blocked on security reviews? Are they blocked on performance? Are they blocked on there's just not a feature that they need? And we were able to, as a group, right then and there, debate, decide, and move. And so we set up this structure of having that daily war room. It's now still twice a week that we have it. And anybody from anywhere can bring up a problem. And so we had a whole program management structure around it. We had an intake where people could enter any problems they were having. We would triage them and go through them and decide what we were going to do in real time. So in addition to like the leaders that were there were several lead architects, principal engineers who were really in the details of this. We were all in that room together, whether it was virtual or physical, able to together in real time unblock developers. And we have a strong culture at Intuit of trying to really unblock anybody who's blocked. And we talk about escalation a lot, and we even have timers on escalation. So if you're blocked and you've got a problem, you have a dependency, you need something, and you get stuck for more than 7 days, you have to raise it to the next level. And I don't remember the exact numbers at the next level, but if they don't resolve it like in 3 days, it goes to the next level, all the way up to the CTO, who gets 24 hours to make a decision to unblock something. And that's a kind of a process we've put in within the last year. We're still learning how to use it, but we really want to have any frontline developer, anybody anywhere who's blocked on something to be able to raise it. And the answer, if you're blocked, might be yes, you're blocked because what you're working on is not a priority and we're not going to do it. But frankly, that's a better answer than trying to swirl around and trying to convince somebody. So at least you know it's not going to happen. Or we can say, wow, you're blocked, let's go fix that. And so that's kind of our culture. And you said in the intro, I started out as a developer. I still think of myself as a developer in some ways, although I haven't written code in a while. But one of the things about developers is they're not shy. They speak up when they're blocked, and we love that about them. And so we really encourage anybody who is stuck to raise your hand and say why you're stuck. And then as a company, we think it's our job as the leadership of a company to unblock our people so they can be free and be creative.
Got it. Yeah, that sounds like the fun, fast pace, the development part, which all the developers enjoy too, and it the right term it comes to my mind is like the rocket ship, where you do want to move super fast and you're building things along the way. I have one last question, and then Aadil, I'll pass things back to you. Is on one of the questions I saw in the chat as well, was like there was one along like, oh, I'm a data scientist. How do I get? What are the skills I need to learn and improve to be able to build something on top of Gen AI? So if for some developer who's getting started with this, have been doing, let's say, a good amount of data science or machine learning, but not a lot in generative AI side, how do you guide them to say like, oh, these are the things, this is the path you can take to reach the end stage?
Yeah, I think I think that any data scientist has the basic skills, but it is in your question, particularly around Gen AI. I think it is really beginning to start with thinking about what really is the end user's model and how. Because what's very different about Gen AI is it's all about the interaction with the end user. And as opposed to a machine learning model that as a classical data scientist, you might put in place inside of a product that manages that experience, and then the model is just a part of that experience. Well, with Gen AI, it is the experience. And it's a radically different way of thinking about the inputs coming in, the outputs, the dialogue back and forth that you can get to refine that experience. And so I think the first thing I would say to any data scientist who really wants to get into Gen AI is you've got to open up your mind to think about what the user's experience could be, because it could be very different. And think about that to then guide how you want to build your models and how you want to think about the interactions you want to do. And I think it's really important as an industry, we move past the phase of just creating a smarter chatbot. That's the beginnings of what Gen AI is, but it's way, it's not the end. There's way more than that we can begin to do with it. And so I think that we've got to think about that. The other thing, I think any data scientist always has to think about the quality of the data coming in. And so your data engineers should be your best friends. You should really be thinking about, do you have clean data coming into your models? And if you don't, how are you going to get that? Because your models are only as good as the data. So that's how I would think about that.
Got it. Thanks for clarifying that. Aadil, back to you. I know you have a bunch of questions of your own and from viewers, so take it on.
Thank you, Hari. Atticus, love to get in some audience questions. So there's a couple from Muhammad Asim. Maybe we can touch on those first. A question for Atticus: as generative AI models are becoming more sophisticated, how do you see the evolution of adversarial attacks, and how can we prepare our cybersecurity infra to mitigate these threats?
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, they are going to get more sophisticated. It's going to happen fast. I think the evolution of adversarial models is going to be the fastest evolving thing we've ever had in cybersecurity. So I think the first thing you have to do to protect yourself is be ready for that. Be ready for the speed. Be building out teams that are focusing on thinking about the kinds of attacks you can be under. In some ways, the types of attacks, I don't think they're going to be that different. But the sophistication, the speed, the scale is all going to be at a level we've not seen before. And so the other thing I would say is you have to make sure your rudimentary defenses are in really good shape, because of the speed and the creativity of these attacks, they're going to find the loose, weak parts of your defenses. And so you've got to really make sure that your base defenses are as strong as they can be. And then make sure you have a team internally that is starting to think about this. If you have an adversary management team or a red team, make sure that you're populating them with Gen AI folks who are thinking about this and who can start to run simulated attacks against yourself. And then also be out there looking about, in adversary world, following the trends and what they're talking about and learning.
Awesome.
That's a great
so
question.
Mohammed, there you go. Atticus has answered your question. I hope you enjoyed that one. He's got a follow-up question, and I think it's very relevant, Atticus. Maybe we can take this one as well. He says, in the development of AI for cybersecurity, particularly in financial scenarios, how are models being trained to ensure accuracy and robustness? I think the second part is even more interesting, which I think will be super relevant to our developers. Can you share insights on the tech stack utilized for enhancing UI UX in these solutions?
Yeah, so I mean, first, you're right. I mean, accuracy and robustness is so important, and that's one of the reasons why in the way we designed our Gen OS is we can tap into both the prompts and the outcomes. And so for every prompt and every outcome, we're correlating. How good is that? We also have built into our UX the ability for customers to give us feedback. So that we can continue to get their feedback directly. But we're also trying to come up with scores of thinking about the accuracy and robustness of these answers. I will tell you, it's a nascent thought. And I think we're all trying to struggle with how do you objectively score these results? Because the results can be very subjective. And the result to one end user could be very different than to another. Like one example is if you ask the model, how is my small business doing? It could say, the model could come back and say, well, your business isn't doing that great. You haven't made a profit in 3 years. Maybe you should consider something else. Well, that's not a very great answer that we want to have. And so we want to make sure that we're having the models trained to be a little more diplomatic, if you will, but also a little more factual and based on kind of what the end user is looking for. So that's a long answer to basically say we're still trying to figure that out. And I think it's more difficult in these kinds of models than we've had before because the answers can be so varied. And it's way different than just measuring, like precision and accuracy, like we've done for so long on these models. It's going to be a very new way of trying to think through this. And for now, we're going to have to involve the human, the consumer of the result, in the loop a lot more than we've done in the past. Which kind of gets to your second question, the UI UX solutions. From the tech stack, it's generic UI tech stack. Like it's nothing exciting or new at this point, but it's trying to build in with the result that's coming back, build in the ability for the user to give the feedback, for the user to ask a follow-up question. And so it's more about the interaction design than the actual technology changes. That's a great question.
Thank you for that, Atticus. There you go, Mohammed. We've answered both your questions. We'll come to another one, Atticus, that is from Fernando Clags. He says, hi, Atticus, what do you think will be the future for DevOps in the future, as we've seen low-code applications today to implement AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think operational rigor and the function of DevOps is never going to go away. It's really important to think about all of the reliability and quality attributes of everything we do, and how we think about managing these ever complex systems that we're building. Never going to go away. But I do think that AI is going to become a huge helper in doing that, which brings to mind, a quote I heard recently. AI is not going to take away anybody's job. But it is going to take away jobs of somebody who isn't using AI to do their job. And so I do think that every one of us, whether you're a developer, you're in DevOps, whether you're a manager or anything, you got to be thinking about how am I using AI to be better and do my job better. And if you're in DevOps, you need to be thinking about that.
Right. Thank you for that, Atticus. Another question that's coming from Aishwarya, who asks, what is the most important skill/aspect that you look in your team when you hire data scientists?
Yeah, I think the most important one is a skill we look for in any of our technical folks we hire is, are they great learners? Have they evolved their thinking? Are they, staying current? Are they curious? And are they staying current on the technology trends? Because, my first language was Fortran 77. We've come a long way since Fortran 77, and I've had to learn a lot of new things, and I love learning all these new things. And that's the kind of people we look for, is people who, great, Fortran 77 was great, I don't need it anymore, now I need to use this. And so are people curious and staying current, and are they lifelong learners? I think that's one. I think the other skill that does relate to data scientists, but also, again, general developers, is how do they decompose problems? When you're faced with a challenge, you're faced with an engineering outcome you're trying to create, how do you decompose that problem, and how do you think about it in iterative steps? Because many of these things we're trying to solve are so complex, they're so new, we can't just figure out the answer right away. We have to work our way to it. And so how do you think about being clear about your objective and then devising a set of experiments that you can quickly run to get yourself there? And that's an important skill for any technologist.
Thank you for that, Atticus. Aishwarya is grateful for you answering the questions. He has another follow-up one, though, which I think is quite interesting. He says, you mentioned that computer science algos are also very robust, so it's not always that AI is going to be the best solution. How does one decide on when to use AI versus when to use computer science to solving these problems at hand?
Yeah, well, I can say I've also already created a problem. AI versus computer science. I think that would be a matchup we wouldn't want to have because it's all computer science in a way. But I totally get the question. I think it comes down to any engineer, whether you're a data scientist, you're a developer, you're building bridges. Anybody who's an engineer, you have a set of tools in your toolbox. And you have to think about, all the basic algorithms you learned as you were getting your computer science degree or your data scientist degree. And you have to think of those tools as something you can apply. And just because you have a hammer doesn't mean everything is a nail. And so I think the way you think about this question is, what's the right tool to solve the problem I've got ahead of me? And you don't want to oversolve. You don't want to get, just because you have this really fancy Gen AI thing, and you could have answered it very simply, with a database lookup, you should really use the simpler thing. And so that's the other axiom I guess I would use is, use the right tool, but use the simplest tool that gets the job done.
Wonderfully said. Thank you, Atticus. I have a couple of questions myself. There are lots more questions that are coming in. I think we should try and answer these, and then we can always go back to the audience questions. So
Sure.
this one in this dynamic tech industry of ours, hiring developers, particularly the right tech talent, is crucial for most firms' innovation and growth. How do platforms like Hackarack influence Intuit's approach to identifying and assessing the technical prowess of potential candidates, especially in these bustling areas like AI? I think we'd love to.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think one of the biggest things that HackerRank and other platforms do is they remove the bias from it, because it's important that we hire the best talent anywhere they are in the world, no matter who they are, as long as they're the best talent for what we're trying to do. And so I think one of the important things that HackerRank and other platforms like it do is they remove some of that bias, because it's a standard set of puzzles and problems that people are solving. It's a standard way of ranking folks so that we know what skills they have and what they don't in an unbiased way. And I don't know if you know, in music industry, when you're doing tryouts, sometimes they put the musicians behind a screen so they can't see them. I think HackerRank is kind of like that. It puts the developer behind a screen, and we can look at the actual work and the work output. So that's one of the most important ways, is so we can really find the best candidates without our own biases coming into the selection. I think the other thing is just the breadth and the speed, the breadth of access to talent. And the speed at which we can identify great talent and bring them in. It's a really important service.
All right. A follow-up question onto that. We spoke about, hiring the right talent. It's crucial to innovation and growth. But we're also seeing this whole skills over pedigree movement, where we're saying as tech continues to evolve, so do the skills required by engineers and developers. So two-part question. One, how does Intuit ensure it remains ahead in identifying these evolving skills? And part two of the question is, how do platforms like Hackarack play a role in refining your assessment and recruiting play?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the ways we stay ahead is, by having relationships with universities, having relationships with organizations like HackerRank, and understanding what you're all seeing out there and what's coming down the pike. The other way is by making sure we really listen to, and I'll use the proper Bangalore term, freshers. Our freshers coming in, or our folks coming in from college, because they often know more than we do because they were just getting trained in it. And so it's really important that, we have a robust intern program globally. We spend a lot of time with having leaders at all levels get to know our interns, learn what they're learning, learn what they're excited about. It's really important that we continue not to be stale just because we're in a company and we've been going down our path, so that we really learn from the folks coming in. And then I think the third way is, again, by looking at how you're evolving your platform, what new problems are you putting out for developers to solve, and what feedback are you getting from your developer community and the people in your community. That's a great way for us to learn as well.
It's fascinating you mentioned the term freshers. Looks like you haven't come to Bangalore after 4 years. You've been here for a while. This is very HR tech speak, if you will, in Bangalore. And it's fascinating that you hit the nail on the spot. So, Atticus, you're as Indian as me and Hari.
Well, somebody was asking me the other day, what's my favorite Indian food? And it's dal makhani. And I can't get enough. It's wonderful. It's great comfort food.
Awesome. So quick, back to computing. Another question there from the audience, interesting one that's come in. What are the different types of models you employ from an AI perspective? Looks like prompts are getting routed to different models by gen runtime. So we just love a little bit of color on this one.
Yeah, so we have a set of kind of the standard off-the-shelf models you might expect from OpenAI and others. And we're always trying different ones. By the way, that's the other thing having that routing layer gives us, is we can bring models in and out of the Gen runtime. And so as one model gets better, we can bring that in, or we can retire other models. But we also have a series of models that we're training inside, which we're calling our financial large language models. And we're training them to really be attuned to the kinds of questions our customers will ask and give them much more relevant results.
Awesome. Speaking about freshers, there's a question from a fresher. What skills do you expect in cybersecurity for freshers, and what advice would you have for them?
Yeah, that is a great question. And one of the things we've built over the last year in our internal security team is a whole kind of learning program that when somebody joins the company in cybersecurity, we have a whole set of things we want them to learn. Because what we find is you learn a lot when you're in school about the way things ought to be, but then things are different. And one of the different things about cybersecurity in particular, which is different than sort of generic engineering, when you're trying to do a generic engineering problem, you're trying to solve the problem and you're trying to get the best answer possible, and you're trying to work with a cooperative user to get you there. In cybersecurity, you've got somebody on the other side actively trying to stop you from getting your objective done. And it is a battle back and forth. And so the reality in the real world can be very different than what you might have learned in school. And so the first thing we want to do with freshers is make sure that you have a great foundation in the basics. And in thinking about, risk mitigation infrastructures, thinking about attack vectors, thinking about, defensive programming, having a great training and all of that. But then how do you think like a bad actor? How creative are you at really kind of thinking about how to break things and all the different ways somebody could, abuse something that you innocently put out in the world. And so we need great security people who think like that. And that's something that you often learn just on the job. And so one of the things that's important too for freshers, I think, is every so often you got to rotate. You have to spend some time maybe in an operations center, but you also have to spend some time in an adversary management team, in an enterprise security team, in a developer security team. You don't want to get stuck in one place for too long, because what will make you a great cybersecurity professional is having that well-rounded view of the entire space.
All right, and let's try and take one of our final questions with that. There's an interesting one from Sans who says, what advice would you offer to other orgs looking to embark on their own Gen AI initiatives based on your experiences and learnings?
Yeah, I think it has to start with what are you trying to do for the user? And if it's something you're doing internally, or if it's something you're doing in your external product. And one of the ways we started, in addition to beginning and getting going with creating our technical stack, we actually had each of our business unit leaders on our CEO staff write a 6-pager, write a document that basically described how Gen AI would advantage their customers. And so in parallel with building out the technology, we had business folks thinking through and dreaming about what could this be like. And we went through a process of the technology teams reading those papers, giving feedback, the business teams giving each other feedback and evolving. And so we wanted to make sure that anything we were doing in Gen AI was driven by an actual customer problem we could solve, and it wasn't doing it just for the sake of the technology. So I do think any organization looking to embark, you got to think about what are you trying to do, and then you can work your way back from that.
Fantastic advice. Thank you, Atticus. With that, it looks like we are at time. I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to Atticus for sharing his invaluable insights with us today. Atticus, your expertise and knowledge have provided us all with a deep understanding of the role in AI in redefining the cybersecurity landscape. A big thank you to Hari as well for being part of this live stream, and to all of you for tuning in. Your participation has made this live stream a mega success. There were so many questions, so many comments. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We hope you found this session informative and engaging. Let's continue this conversation and work together towards ensuring financial security and prosperity for everyone in this age of AI. With that, have a great day and see you soon.